Welcome to the Make and Design podcast. I'm your host, Carina Gardner, and today I want to talk about what happened to me in 2007. 2007 is when I finished my Ph.D. in design from the University of Minnesota, and suddenly I was done with school and trying to decide what I was going to do. And I knew for sure at that point, I finished my master's degree, I had a baby, I finished my PhD, I had a baby, within 10 days, that kind of craziness. So I had two really small children at home, and I was like, I would like to stay at home with them, and I haven't totally decided if I'm wanting to teach a lot. So I did teach. I was adjunct faculty at the University of Minnesota for a little while I kind of did some freelance work and I tried to figure things out. But one of the things that I saw was that there had to be ways to figure out how to make steady income that wasn't just contract. And when I say contract, I mean like freelance work, right? Like freelance work comes and goes. Like while you're designing for a freelance client, you're also having to figure out how to get the next client, right? And so what I did was I started really digging around and figuring out what was out there. And one of the things that I fell upon was this amazing hobby called digital scrapbooking. And actually before that, even my senior year, we had worked with some scrapbooking companies because I was in Utah for my undergraduate degree. And there was this whole crazy universe of people who were getting into scrapbooking. It was like a really big hobby. And as I kind of dug into that, I started to see all of these people who I would consider hobbyists try to figure out how they could turn that into a business. Now, in scrapbooking, there were a lot of different ways that hobbyists were trying to get their names out there. One of the ways was submitting to magazines. So they would do a beautiful layout, have pictures, use a product, and they would turn it into a magazine. And if a magazine accepted it, then they would get published. And actually, there are quite a few people who ended up becoming really big in the industry who did it this way. They were able to take their hobby and turn it into a business. Now, there were lots of people who did this who never got a business deal. And you might be like, why? Why did some people go in, put their magazine, put all these magazine subscriptions in, put all these beautiful designs in, and why did some of them never make money doing it? And why did some of them actually were able to turn it into a business? And the differentiator is really what the intention was behind what these people were doing. So I think this becomes really clear, especially to those that I've talked to in the scrapbooking industry. I was a creative director for Cartabella. I designed for My Mind's Eye and, of course, Echo Park as well, since Cartabella and Echo Park are sister companies. And one of the things that really became interesting and obvious to me is that intention really actually drove the way that people went from hobby to business, okay? And so people who were like, I just love this, I just adore doing it every day, I just want to make this stuff and I want to be recognized for it, those people stayed in the hobby realm. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it, okay? They were okay with that. Sometimes they were frustrated, and I had heard this, I wish I could make money doing this. But unfortunately, they weren't thinking about it as a business. They were still thinking of it as a hobby. I love doing every single piece of this. This is really fun. And so they weren't turning it into a business, okay? The people who were thinking about it as, how do I really actually monetize this thing, were making very smart moves. And some of them I am not going to go over here because they're specific to certain people in the industry. And I don't feel comfortable just telling all of you guys. Some of you have heard it if you're in my Marketing for Creatives membership, or if you have been in our Creative Entrepreneur Mastermind, which we only do once a year in January. Like in smaller group settings, I will tell you people's names and how they did it. But let's just talk about it generally for those of you listening here who are like, I really want to understand what a business mindset really is. So the business mindset is, how do I monetize this thing? So once I submit this beautiful layout, the scrapbooking layout, to a magazine, then not only do I go out of my way to try to network with that magazine if they accept it, so that they will take more of my stuff, I think and figure out ways that I could work with the companies that I have all of this paper product that I'm using for there. Okay. So the first step, of course, would be to get that product for free, right? Like, because you don't have to pay for it anymore if you're like spending all this time making stuff out of it and submitting it to magazines. Okay. So that's the first thing. It's like the first level is like, how do we get this for free? Right. So now I'm not spending money on this hobby, but someone is actually providing it. And then the second one is to really start creating alliances, right? So like maybe you worked directly with one company like Echo Park and you're like, I'm only going to use your products. I would love to, every time I get a magazine deal, if you would pay me X amount to do this, you could, you could create some kind of deal. That was kind of low level. Then there are people who went from that piece who actually turned themselves into brands, as in they started using social media, they started using video, and they started creating marketing platforms to show how to use that product, but they started building a brand for themselves, which is really the mindset around creating a business. Because once you start building a personal brand for yourself, then you can take it and go move it into creation of products, working with other products, or, creating your own collections. And so what I'm talking about here is, I would say probably 95%, maybe up to 99% of people in this particular example stuck to it being a hobby. It was something they just loved, and they never made that transition to that business mindset where they turned it into a career. And some of you are thinking, if you were back in the scrapbooking days, there were people who turned this very much into a career. Okay. Now, how does this relate to you as a designer? I know I'm using scrapbooking as an example, but honestly, this works in all different areas or fields. This works in the freelance market. It works in the surface pattern design market. A lot of times we go out there and we're like, I love this. I love creating fabric. I love quilting the fabric. And it remains a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with that if you want it to remain a hobby. But I think that a lot of you want to monetize it. You're like, how do I make money doing this? You do have to make a little bit of a mindset shift that not everything in this is going to be fun. In fact, the initial first pieces of doing this business are not going to be fun at all. Instead, what you have to do is go, okay, I've got to get my name out there. I have got to market what I'm doing. I need to reach out to suppliers and manufacturers. Depending on your business, it could be a number of different things, right? And what I see is that most designers in particular, they start with the fun part first. And the fun part might be coming up with great ideas for their brand, or they are maybe not even designing the stuff. They just have ideas for the collections they want to make. And I would say, first of all, you have to dig in and actually do the design work, right? And be great at your design art work. And then second, you have to start actually digging in and building a network out there, depending on what you're doing. Now, if you're doing freelance, that's going to be word of mouth, working with contracts, working with companies. Those opportunities come from a lot of networking, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that. I talk about the 4 ways you can make money as a designer in my design bootcamp. If you want to find that or learn more about that, you can go to designsweetcourses.com/designbootcamp. If you are just like, I just want to look at all the different things, right? Then you're reaching out, finding those networks, working through and figuring out how you can monetize it. And you guys, there really are a lot of different ways you can monetize a hobby, especially now. When I got started in 2007, there wasn't the strong backing of the way that you could monetize back then that there is now. For example, very weak at that time because social media wasn't that big, was affiliate marketing, right? So you can build a brand now and do affiliate links and affiliate marketing to sell your own stuff, which is incredible, you guys. Incredible. Okay. It is literally like, okay, so maybe Echo Park doesn't want to pay me, but if they had an affiliate link system, something that I could show every time I used their paper and I gave that link and people bought that paper, I would make a little percentage of sale. This is huge, you guys. It's huge. So that's one way that designers, I will see them doing stuff. Then there's, of course, selling your actual design work and getting a royalty. And you guys, same thing here. If there is not a better time to become a designer than now, I don't know when. Even with, I know people get freaked out about AI. I actually think in some ways it's easier now because of AI, because you have the ability to differentiate your artwork from AI, because AI all looks so much the same. So if you can start creating really beautiful stuff and start branding it, you have an edge that is so key here, okay? Anyway, you're taking your designs and you can sell them on platforms. Another place that was not really well developed in 2007, that's very well developed now. And that's how we teach our design suite students, our university students. We're working with them to help them really build out those platforms, because that is like, you get on a platform and you immediately make cash on it. Now you might be like, Carina, what do you mean by platforms? You guys, you know all the platforms. There are tons out there. Etsy, Amazon. I think even Michael's at this point has like an online design area. The bottom line is there are lots of different ways to be seen. You just have to choose how to let people see you. And if you want to learn more about that, we talk about that a lot in Design Bootcamp. Design Bootcamp is like our 5-day workshop that kind of gives you this little baseline of design business skills. And it's the only way we allow people to come into our design suite program. We want to make sure that it's a good filter for you understanding, the 4 ways that you make money, how you can get started, our best ways for making money, and all of that good stuff. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to designsuitecourses.com/designbootcamp. Anyway, the whole point of this is that there are so many ways to make cash, and most of you just don't know how to get started, okay? But making that shift to hobby to business, I'm going to tell you there's one thing you've got to do first, and that is a mindset shift of, I just love doing this, to how do I make money doing this? And being willing to do the hard work that's maybe not as fun as the hobby itself, to do it as a business, okay? I do hear once in a while people say, and not necessarily in my field, but, especially those that, maybe they loved cooking, maybe they open a restaurant and then they're like, oh, I don't love cooking anymore. I don't really find that in the design space. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's like a 1% out there. What I find actually is that designing and making money from it actually propels people, because then they feel and they see that they have purpose in their life, that the good that they are doing actually, you make money from it, but someone else is really enjoying your design work. That's actually really wonderful give and exchange that happens in the design field. So even though there are all these business aspects to it that might be not quite as fun, people usually still love, at least I love that design piece, because even with the business associated with it, it is a really exciting thing to be making money from it. So it's just kind of like a big fat bonus versus, just the hobby of doing the thing. So you absolutely can turn those design skills into cash. Lots of different ways to do it, more than ever before, you guys. I mean, more than ever before. It's kind of insane. In 2025, the ability to make money from your design work it's just limitless. And there are lots of different ways to go about that. And you can literally take this episode and make that transitional mind shift, which is, I really enjoy doing this, to how do I monetize it? Something about asking that question, by the way, you will start to see way after way after way pop up of different ways you can make money. It will just open up your mind to those opportunities that you didn't see before, because you're so busy just enjoying the hobby that you didn't see all these other opportunities. And I think that one tiny little mindset shift will really make you start thinking about, how can I make this a career, whether it's an encore career or career when we're younger, like a career that really, allows you to stay at home and do the things that you want to do. Want to hang out more? Go to designsuitecourses.com/free to get our weekly freebies and patterns, die cut files, and more. Can't wait to see you there.